that's the effect. Now, what's the cause of this? Well, it's something we've told you about for a long time. We are burning our food supply. Michael Grunwald, he's the national correspondent for Time magazine. I have to tell you, Michael, when you have global food prices going up in the last year, 83%, I'm sorry, over the last 3 years, 83% increase in global food prices, you have a problem. One of the problems is ethanol. You want to explain?
Sure, and it's biofuels in general. I mean, as you mentioned, there are other parts of the problem. You know, gas prices are skyrocketing, and you know, there's been some weird weather. But at least a third of the problem probably is the fact that farmers around the world, and particularly in the United States, are growing fuel instead of food. And that's Michael, as you mentioned, supply and demand. When you increase the demand, the price is going to go up.
All right, but let's put this into context, because this is something that we've been talking about. Before anybody started down this ethanol stuff, we were on this program saying, this is the dumbest thing you could possibly do. Let's not burn through our fuel supply. Ethanol doesn't work. Tell me, how much grain does it take to fill up an SUV and use that same grain? How long can a human survive on that same amount of grain?
You could feed an adult male for a year on the amount of grain it would take to fill up an SUV. So you know, this is a problem because of government subsidies and government mandates that have created this artificial demand for basically growing fuel. Instead, we're feeding we're feeding our gas tanks instead of feeding ourselves.
You know, there's a lot of people, because I don't think it's getting a lot of coverage. There's riots in the Middle East. There's riots in Indonesia. I mean, it's bad. The demand for food and rice that is being rationed now around the world. You got to ask yourself, you know, they hate us right now because of our foreign policy and us being in bed with dictators like Egypt or Saudi Arabia just for oil. How much is the rest of the world going to hate us when we're starving their people to death because of an invisible gas?
I think that's a fair point. I mean, there are riots in Mexico, riots in Haiti, right in our backyard. I mean, you talk about a place like Pakistan, which already as if it wasn't unstable enough. The rising food prices there have added to that instability, and as we found out, when Pakistan gets unstable, we can feel it here in the United States.
Just give me one last piece here. The government is currently paying, in our tax dollars, $1.8 billion a year to stop farmers from farming on good land for environmental reasons. You say we're doing the same thing with for environmental reasons with ethanol and fuel for our hybrids. You actually say that all of this stuff is making the environment much, much worse.
Yeah, almost all of it. I think, deforestation right now is about 20% of our carbon emissions. And the sort of long story short is that when you create this artificial demand for grain, people are going to grow more grain, and they're not going to grow it in parking lots. They're going to grow it in forests and wetlands. And these are places that originally stored immense amounts of carbon. So while these biofuels do burn, in some cases slightly cleaner than gas, and in some cases considerably cleaner, but you burn off all the excess carbon when you tear down these forests.
Centers nearby, and upon checking out, the gal asked me what I was doing with so much food, and I said, there's an economic collapse coming to this country. Plan now. And she laughed. She actually thought that was funny. Here's the point. There are people out there that we can't help and don't want to help themselves. But as for the rest of us, buy storable food now. It remains cheap at this very moment in time, despite the meteoric rise in price of wheat, up 54% since June. Sugar's up 114%, and corn is up 79%, along with most other commodities, including silver. Buy food now for storage. This instant. Go tonight, tomorrow. Buy food in any amount you are able to buy it. Just as silver was cheap 1 year ago at $14.32 an ounce, food is cheap today compared to what it will cost 1 year hence, and perhaps much, much sooner.
For 30 years, EfoodsGlobal has been perfecting the process by which we make our food reserves. We start by using only the finest sun-ripened and fresh produce grown and harvested following the Good Agricultural Practices guidelines. Not only are our ingredients GAP certified, but we carefully test them for chemical and microbial contaminants like Salmonella and E. coli before the approved ingredients are blended into our exclusive recipes following strict quality control standards established and audited by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. These ingredients are cholesterol-free and contain no trans fats, no hydrogenated oils, and no MSG. At EfoodsGlobal, we do not freeze-dry our food because the freeze-drying process removes moisture and infuses chemicals into the food to prolong the shelf life. All of our ingredients are dehydrated only using low heat, and no chemical preservatives are ever added. Our dehydration process naturally preserves the food so that upwards of 92% of the nutritional value remains intact. These quality ingredients are then packaged in moisture-resistant, light-resistant, proprietary assurance packaging that is flushed with carbon dioxide to prevent oxidation and guarantee longer shelf life and quality before sealing the package. Finally, we date stamp the outside of the package the day we prepare the food reserves, so you know you're getting fresh food reserves. EfoodsGlobal reserves, when properly stored, maintain their flavor and quality for up to 25 years. Now, I know what you're thinking. These can't possibly be the reserves. But these delicious meals are exactly what you get when you prepare your EfoodsGlobal meals. And none of these meals require more than a pot of boiling water, the contents of a package, and 10 to 20 minutes. Pretty soon, you are going to select some of these delicious meals to try for yourself for free. That's a great opportunity. Let's talk about some other opportunities EfoodsGlobal has to offer you. Do you have any food reserves in your home right now? How long could you provide food for your family if the food supply was cut off? A month? A week? 3 days? Wouldn't you feel better if you had the necessary reserves? Have you ever noticed that the more advanced we get, the less prepared we are? Many things that defined life only 100 years ago are so convenient today that we don't really think about what would happen if that convenience were gone. Consider how we get our food. We just go down to the grocery store and grab a few things. But what if something happened that interrupted the food supply to the store? How long would it take for the shelves to be wiped out? What would you do? How long could you and your family survive? You know, for all the other important things in our lives, we have a variety of professionals, from mechanics to doctors, to help cover our bases. Why don't we also have a food professional? Food is our greatest dependency. Yet most of us find ourselves unprepared for the uncertainties that lie ahead. Why take chances? Why not do something about it? You've already taken the first step. Keep moving forward with this tour, and we can help you put a plan together and even show you how to get your food for free.